Imagine a road so high it climbs above the clouds. A road so dangerous entire mountains had to be cut open just to make way. This isn't fiction, it's real. And it changed two countries forever. This is the Karakoram Highway, a 1,224-kilometer stretch of asphalt that defies gravity, climate, and politics. But to call it just a highway would be missing the point. In China and Pakistan, it's called something more powerful, the Friendship Highway. Built through the death zones of the Karakoram Range, home to glaciers, earthquakes, and some of the world's deadliest peaks. This road is a symbol of something far greater than engineering. It's about endurance, about sacrifice, about how two nations facing global isolation and impossible odds decided to carve a future together through rock and ice. But here's the mystery. Why would China and Pakistan risk lives and spend decades building a road through one of the most unforgiving places on Earth? Why does this single highway still matter so much? Not just as infrastructure, but as a lifeline, a defense corridor, and a geopolitical game-changer. To understand that, we have to go back to a time of Cold War alliances, rising regional tensions, and a bold proposal that would connect mountains, markets, and mines like never before. You know, the 1960s were quite a stormy time in Asia. Tensions between India and Pakistan were rising fast, with wars breaking out in 1947 and again in 1965. Meanwhile, China had fallen out with the Soviet Union, turning its focus to building new alliances elsewhere. For Pakistan, it was a moment of desperation, being cut off from regional trade, surrounded by adversaries, and in urgent need of a powerful friend. China, too, found itself isolated. The United States had placed it under containment, and the Soviet Union had become a rival. The Strait of Malacca, a narrow sea passage near Singapore, left China's access to the Indian Ocean vulnerable to naval blockades. That's when a radical idea took shape. Pakistan approached China with a proposal that seemed almost impossible to build a road. Not just any road, but one that would cross the towering Karakoram Mountains and directly link China's western Xinjiang region to Pakistan's north. It would give China a shortcut to the Arabian Sea and give Pakistan access to one of the world's largest economies. This wasn't just about trade or travel. It was about survival, strategy, alignment. And you know, in March of 1966, in the halls of Beijing, the two nations signed an agreement that would change their relationship forever. The plan was codenamed Project 16,001, a name as secretive as it was ambitious. More than a road, it was a declaration that even in a world divided by ideology and war, China and Pakistan would carve their own path together through the mountains. Building the Karakoram Highway wasn't just difficult, it was, honestly, borderline suicidal. Stretching over 1,224 kilometers, the route cuts straight through the Karakoram Range, home to K2, the second highest mountain on Earth. This wasn't just a scenic route, it was a death zone. Imagine carving a road where the terrain includes landslides, avalanches, and glaciers the size of cities. The region is constantly shaken by earthquakes. The weather can flip from blistering heat to bone-freezing blizzards in just a few hours. And for half the year, the path disappears under snow. Yet over 22,000 Chinese workers and thousands of Pakistani engineers and laborers set out to do the unthinkable. They worked at altitudes above 4,000 meters, where the air is so thin that breathing feels like drowning. Altitude sickness was constant. Some went blind. Some collapsed. Many never came back. Teams had to blast through solid rock with 8,000 tons of explosives. Tunnels were dug by hand. Bridges were built over rivers that roared with glacial meltwater. Camps were basic, with tents pitched on icy cliffs. Food was often limited to canned rations, and fresh vegetables were, a rare luxury. Despite everything, they pressed on, but the cost was brutal. More than 700 lives were lost during construction. 88 Chinese workers are buried along the highway itself. Their graves are still tended by locals, their memory woven into the mountains they helped tame. This wasn't just construction. It was human sacrifice measured not just in hours, but in lives. And somehow, against all odds, they did it. By 1978, after more than a decade of labor, the Karakoram Highway was complete. And, well, the world took notice. When the Karakoram Highway officially opened in 1978, the world saw more than just a road. It was hailed as a modern miracle, a triumph of engineering, grit, and international cooperation. Let's break down the sheer scale. The project moved millions of cubic meters of rock and earth, laid 1,224 kilometers of pavement, and constructed 24 major bridges, 70 smaller ones, and a staggering 1,700 culverts to manage the mountain's unpredictable water flows. It took 8,000 tons of explosives to blast through granite walls and 80,000 tons of cement to anchor bridges in seismic zones where earthquakes were not a risk, but a given. But beyond the numbers, the impact was, honestly, just transformational for Pakistan. This highway stitched together its remote mountainous north regions like Gilgit and Baltistan with the country's heartland. Suddenly, trade routes opened up. Tourism began to grow, and distant villages gained access to markets, healthcare, and education. For China, the Karakoram Highway was, well, a real breakthrough. It provided a direct overland passage into South Asia, a geopolitical foothold that bypassed choke points like the Strait of Malacca and opened up a brand new strategic front on its western border. It was also symbolic. A joint effort between two nations, often isolated on the global stage. The Karakoram Highway stood as proof that they didn't need to follow the world. They could build their own path. And honestly, the world took notice. Magazines like National Geographic called it one of the highest, wildest, and most beautiful roads on Earth. To this day, adventure cyclists, backpackers, and explorers rank it among the greatest road journeys of all time. But perhaps the most important thing the highway achieved was this. It laid the foundation for what was to come next. Not just a road, but a vision of continental-scale connectivity. Decades after its completion, the Karakoram Highway is no relic of the past. In fact, it's more important than ever. Why? Because it's now the backbone of one of China's most ambitious global strategies, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. At the heart of this initiative lies the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, known as CPEC, a multi-billion-dollar partnership to modernize infrastructure, power plants, and trade routes. And it all starts with the Karakoram Highway. What was once a narrow, high-altitude pass has been upgraded into a modern expressway. Engineers have reinforced dangerous sections with new tunnels, built bypasses to avoid avalanche zones, and installed advanced safety systems to monitor traffic and weather in real time. But the real transformation isn't just in asphalt and concrete. It's in strategy. For China, the upgraded KKH now leads straight to Gwadar on Pakistan's Arabian Sea coast. This means China can move goods from Xinjiang to the Indian Ocean, bypassing the congested and U.S.-patrolled Strait of Malacca, which handles over 60% of China's oil imports. That's a game changer. Now just imagine a shipping container leaving western China. Instead of having to travel 12,000 kilometers by sea through Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean, it can actually cut across Pakistan by land, reaching open waters in just a fraction of the time. But it's not just about speed here. It's really about resilience, security, and, influence. The Karakoram Highway has become much more than a symbol of friendship. It's now a critical artery in China's global trade network and a cornerstone of Pakistan's economic ambitions. Entire cities along its route are being transformed. New industrial zones, logistics hubs, and energy projects are springing up. For local communities, it means new jobs, faster trade, and better connectivity. But for strategists, it means something even bigger: a new balance of power across South and Central Asia. And yet, despite all the geopolitics, the Karakoram Highway remains something deeply human. It's a road carved by people who refuse to surrender to nature. Every curve, every tunnel, every bridge tells a story of courage and endurance. It's a reminder that some of the most powerful connections between nations aren't just made in conference rooms, but on mountain roads where human determination meets the impossible. So the next time you spot a truck snaking its way along those frozen cliffs, remember, this is more than just a road. It's a living monument to ambition, sacrifice, and the belief that when nations dare to dream together, even mountains can be moved.